When I was 4, we moved here from Ohio and moved right down the street from the Lemon Grove campus at Skyline back in the day. And I say it all the time, I know God put us in that house for Skyline. Like he changed every member of my family's house through Skyline. When I started going to church, I was not a believer and then loved the middle school group. And it was in the middle school group that I accepted the Lord and started following him and just loved it so much I didn't want to ever miss.
I was raised in the church. My mom's a Christian, and so we went to church as a small kid, and I made the choice at about, I would say 15 or 16 years old. I had no interest in it. I walked away from that. And after I got out of the Marine Corps, I came back at 25, and my uncle went to Skyline, so got invited by him, started going to church again, and I got plugged in there, and that's where we met.
We had a Thursday night young adult service, and he started coming and started hanging out with our group, and we became friends first, and then he asked me out.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. We got married in 2001 and had Isaiah in 2003, had Devin in 2005, and then Addie in 2008, and yeah, we've been at Skyline the whole time. It's like family. It's like my second home. I've always felt like that.
When I decided to go back to church, it was, I first off, I'd fully walked away from it and lived that way for about a decade. So when I got to the point where I was ready to come back, I was fully in. And for me, that meant fully in. And I had heard a sermon at Skyline about giving, and I'm fully in, I'm giving. I started tithing at that point, and really I've never looked back.
As soon as I got real jobs in college, I just knew this is what you do. I'd heard the same thing, sermons, I read the Bible, I knew that's what you do. And so I did, and God was always so faithful. But there came times where I wanted to hold on when he was asking me to give more for specific things, and I was holding back and wrestling with him. And then as soon as I would give it over, and we experienced this multiple times in our marriage, when he'd ask us to give for a certain campaign or whatever it was, he'd put an amount on our hearts. It would always be outside of what we could ever think or imagine that we could possibly do. But then he would always be so faithful. And then there was a time where he asked us to give an amount outside of our budget, and it was like, ooh, but he's been faithful every time. We're just gonna get that raise. And then we didn't get that raise. But Proverbs says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops, and your barns will be overflowing and your vats will be spilling over with new wine. That is no joke. And I knew that, and I always went back on that verse. But that first fruits, like tithe is the first check we cut every time. And so I knew that time he was telling me, cut the tithe check, cut this extra offering check, and then watch what I do. And over the 2-year campaign, we didn't get that raise, but even though it didn't make sense on paper, we paid our bills every time and still had an abundance.
And with that comes a peace, just over all of it. You know, a peace over your career, a peace over just everything that you hold dear to you, really, you know. When
they say there's certain people who tithe and never look back, like you said, never look back, you would never want to go back. It's true, because we would be missing out on the blessing, not just financial blessing, but just the spiritual blessing that comes with letting go and holding an open hand and not holding on tight and being like, no, this is mine. God gave it to us. He gave us everything. He gave us the ability to work. He gave us the ability to move and breathe and do the job. And so it's all his anyway. Our conversations now are more, we don't want to miss out on the blessing. So, okay, God, show us where you want us to give and how much, because we don't want to not be part of it. We don't want to miss out. We want to be part of that blessing, because it's cool to say, I gave to this, and now look at that church that they started, and now that's impacting the kingdom, and we don't want to miss out on that.